Welcome to another episode of Worthy Emotions. This is our launch, or what I call our inaugural season. My guest today is Samantha J. Evian, a family law attorney with Obermayer Law Firm in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where she is widely known for guiding families through some of the most emotionally complex and high conflict divorce and custody cases. What stood out to me immediately about Samantha, beyond her legal skills and decades of experience, is her deep, deep empathy. She doesn't just manage cases, she carries the emotional weight of the people and the children impacted by them. Samantha understands that divorce is not just a legal process, it's a human one. In this conversation, Samantha offers a rare, honest look at how emotions like fear and anger drive high conflict divorce, how courts really view parental behavior, and what actually helps protect children when things get hard. This is a powerful conversation for parents, professionals, and anyone who believes divorce can be handled with more emotional intelligence and less damage. Let's begin. Which of these emotions are welcomed at the divorce table? All of them, because your emotions are worthy, and so are you. Hey there, Samantha. I'm so grateful to you for being my guest on Worthy Emotions podcast. How are you feeling this morning?
I'm great. I'm very excited to be here and to see you.
We met at Make Divorce Healthier Symposium, either 2016 or 2018, where a group of divorce professionals on the spectrum came together and we explored and discussed and brainstormed about ways to make divorce healthier. Since that symposium, it has been my life's mission to find my place in making divorce healthier. Having four young children in the midst of a divorce was probably the most difficult experience I have ever had. I cannot say that I was the best at managing the stress and the disappointment and the fear and the anger that come naturally with divorce. But I did learn later on that one of the secrets to going through divorce and coming out of divorce and co-parenting that can make it easier was emotional intelligence. And so we're here to talk a little bit about that from your perspective, what you see, how emotions play a role to help or to hurt the divorce process, particularly in high conflicts. Divorce is never easy, but when conflict escalates, emotions can overwhelm even the most prepared families. High conflict divorce is especially damaging, as I know, not just financially, but emotionally and for the children involved. So you've built a reputation at Obermayer for guiding clients through the most difficult cases with clarity and compassion. So share with us from your perspective, how do emotions show up in high conflict divorce and what's the cost if they're not managed well?
I think the worst thing that parents do is to use the kids as a sword and to put the children in the middle. And they are more hateful against the spouse than they can focus on what's best for their kids. I think everybody should really try to take a step back, think about things from the children's perspective as opposed to their own perspective at times, which is very difficult to do and easy for me to say on the other side of it. But I think generally it will help. It will help lessen the conflict.
You're right about it is easier said than done. So when you're sitting there and you're watching, you're representing your client, of course, and you're watching the spouses fight, do you wish you could just jump in and shake them? Or do you say something that helps them bring it down a little, bring down the fire a little bit?
I certainly try to bring down the fire. I think a lot of it is that they just need to get their position across, their emotions across, which I'm happy to listen to and help and try to guide as to what I think a court would ultimately do with regard to the given issue, whatever that given issue may be. And I try to always put it in the lens of what a court might think or what a court might do to try to lessen the emotions. You know, the court doesn't like to micromanage people's lives in custody cases. They're simply not set up or equipped to do so. The court has put in place a number of different ways that we can try to get involved in the, day in and day out. And there's a lot of resources available to help clients through some of these really high conflict every day. Well, what about this? And what about this? And he just did that. So I try to impart ultimately what could happen with an issue like that.
When you think about the amount of time, and this may be an unfair question to try to quantify, but when you think about the amount of time you spend with the client in their journey, in their divorce journey, what would you say the majority of that time is spent having to deal with, listen to, manage, co-manage their emotions? Would you say it's only a little bit, 50%, most of it?
It depends on the case for sure. Probably 30 to 40% of it.
That's a lot.
It is a lot.
So let's talk a little bit about sort of boundaries, advocacy and boundaries. So attorneys often have to set boundaries with clients who are overwhelmed. How do you balance empathy, like really feeling the pain that your client is feeling, with firm guidance so your clients feel heard, but also, to the best of their ability, make rational decisions?
If there's a safety issue, we will deal with it for sure. Aside from the safety issue, more of emotional or boundaries or overwhelmed, I always try to think of it as like a cost benefit analysis. What the cost of this is to you, both emotionally, financially, versus what the outcome could be in the end, what a court is most likely to do, or how a court could handle it, or can a court even get involved in some of the issues, the emotional issues that come up.
Can the court get involved in the emotional issues that come up? Like, how would they even get involved? I mean, other than demanding that parents, for example, go through parenting courses. I think that's how Montgomery County does it, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, so the court system is set up to try to get cases to settle. The court doesn't want to have to make these decisions or deal with the day in and day out issues that arise. The court system's just simply not equipped to manage the case load and the repetitive occurrences that come up. So the court has systems in place, like you said. In Montgomery County, they require when you file a custody complaint that you attend a parenting seminar, and both parents have to attend, and they attend separately. They also send you to a mediation session. Now, not all counties are like that. For example, in Philadelphia, they don't have any parenting class. They don't have any mediation session. So it depends on what county you're in. Bucks County is different. Chester County is different. Delaware County is different. I primarily practice in the 5 counties surrounding us, and they're all different. But with regard to Montgomery County, they do require a parenting class. If you come up with an agreed order or there's a court order and you refile within 6 months or more, you have to take it again. The other thing that Montgomery County has really started instilling in a lot of these very high conflict, frequent flyer cases where they're back in court all the time over tons of issues, we call them frequent flyer kind of custody matters.
You don't get any points for those frequent flyers.
No, they take away points.
Yeah.
The court in Pennsylvania has reenacted what's called a parenting coordinator statute, and the court will order or if it's requested by other parties, will enter orders or by agreement a co-parenting coordinator who is like a mini judge. We keep filing petitions. Again, like the emotional and financial cost is so high to keep filing petitions. And we can certainly send letters and try to get people to act accordingly and well, but doesn't always work. So these parent coordinators can be appointed or ordered in high conflict cases. And there's a whole statute, but it sets forth what they can and they cannot do. Typically, you'll just send them an email. Here's my position. Mom never dropped off the baseball equipment and now little Johnny can't go to baseball and it's a disaster and it's an emergency and little Johnny needs his baseball equipment. So the parent coordinator can issue orders. The equipment needs to be dropped off at 3:00. Issue these orders to try to deal with big things, little things, whether or not Johnny can get a haircut, whether or not he can go on vacation to Florida. Sometimes, these issues come up daily, hourly, monthly, that the court sort of can't deal with, that a parent coordinator can, and it becomes an order. It's like a mini order that the parties have to follow.
Which means if you violate that order, like if it's an order, the violating is consequential, right?
Then you're in contempt, and then you could file a contempt petition with the court. That's correct. They can do things that aren't emergencies, but are very crucial to the party's emotionally high conflict issue that they can deal with right there and then. If either party doesn't like it, you can appeal it to go in front of the judge. They're supposed to happen within a certain amount of time. But in the meantime, at least you have an order that everybody can try to comply with.
Yeah.
I think that has been a way that the court has really tried to manage these very complex emotional issues.
So let me ask you this question, and then we'll go on with a few others before we get to a fun segment. Underneath high conflict is typically an emotion that's running the show, and that emotion may be different for the parties involved. So I'm going to throw out what I think is underneath from an emotional intelligence perspective, and you tell me if that's what you see in high conflict. I think depending on the party, but one could be fear, like fear of losing the children, of custody. And I think another is straight up anger. Angry about a multitude of things that have gone on in the relationship. And in the hierarchy of emotions all carry a frequency. And you can look at an emotion and know what that frequency, that is a frequency that's either high or low. Those are both low energy frequencies. This is what I think in high conflict. Certainly it was part of my personal experience here. What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think fear and anger are certainly the biggest drivers to the high conflict. And sometimes it's very hard to differentiate between fear and anger and what's best for the children, which is what the court's always looking at. What's best for the children. It's not what's best for mom. It's not what's best for dad. It's what's best for the kids. I think the other thing that we've been using, and the court also will order, is a co-parenting counselor. Mm-hmm. So they're not issuing many orders, but they're doing frequent sessions or to try to lessen the fear and the anger from the real meat of the issue.
And when those parents do that require work, do you find it makes it easier on you?
Absolutely. Because a lot of times the fear and the anger don't really equate to something that can be changed or something that a court can order. A lot of times these co-parent counselors can help navigate and sort through and get the parties to understand each other's fears and angers and emotions than myself as a divorce attorney can do, a divorce custody attorney can do. But we certainly deal with it day in and day out.
What is ideal to me is to capture that couple, those parents, before they start the divorce journey and prepare them emotionally with emotional intelligence skills to go through this very arduous journey. Like, I believe in intervention, like what happens in the divorce process. You all have to go to mediation or parenting classes, but I'm also looking at some degree of prevention. Do you think that's realistic? So imagine a client that has come to you having already done emotional intelligence training, and she comes to you or he comes to you understanding their emotions, their triggers, and with the skill set to deal with them. How would that impact your work?
I think that would be ideal. I think everyone could use that service. The only issue is that you can't really control how the other side's going to act, right? And so you can't contemplate or make up a scenario by which you can prepare for how mom's going to react to something or what dad's going to do. And then the other party, my client, is reacting to an action from the other side, which is sometimes very difficult to predict or difficult to prevent. But certainly having a baseline,
Yeah.
this is how we're going to deal with these issues, would be greatly beneficial.
Samantha, attorneys are people too. They have flesh and blood, they bleed too, right? My question for you is, how does the divorce and the high conflict impact Samantha? And do you ever find yourself taking some of the stuff home with you? If you don't mind sharing on a little bit of a personal level here.
I guess always. I always take it home with me, and I get very emotionally involved in the cases. And everyone says, you can't do that. You can't make it your own. You can't, but I get sucked in, and maybe that makes me a better lawyer. Maybe that makes me a better divorce custody attorney, because I do get sucked in and I do take it home with me. Certainly over the years, I've been doing this for a very long time now. I've been able to navigate those issues probably a little bit better, but I do still get sucked in. I still feel all the pains with my clients, and maybe, it does make me a better lawyer for them.
If we were to do your emotional intelligence quotient, which is a score, which demonstrates how well you use the multiple emotional intelligence skills, you probably would be very high score in empathy, because you feel what they feel, your client feels. And that is, to me, without having done the assessment, indicates high degree of empathy. What would you say?
I probably have too much empathy. And my own kids would probably tell you, I care too much about everything. I'm very sensitive. I'm very, that's just who I am. So with my own kids, other people's kids, with my clients, that I try, certainly by the time we're in court and by the time we're presenting things to the court, I'm able to manage, of course, my emotions. And that's really important. And it's not, but I still do get very involved.
Let's switch over to what I think is so fun. Hopefully you'll think it's fun too, which is rapid fire answer completion. This is how it goes. I'm going to begin a statement, and your job is to finish it with whatever comes up. You don't have to overthink it at all. Whatever comes up. I did not give you these statements in advance, so this is all free flow. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
One piece of advice I wish every divorcing parent knew before they ever contacted me is:
keep the big picture in mind.
Second, I would rather not take a case if a client...
It's going to be really difficult.
And you kind of know that in advance too, right? Really. All right. The most surprising thing a client has ever said to me in a divorce case was...
You've never heard this before, and I've heard it all. So surprising, not surprising, when they always think that I've never heard it before.
We all think our case is unique. Like no other case is like ours. We feel that very deeply. The most rewarding part of being a divorce attorney is...
I guess years later, when people come back to me and I can see and they show me how successful their kids are, whether it be my son just graduated from this college, or they just got this great job, or here's a picture from their wedding. I love when clients come back to me with good news.
Oh, I love that. Okay. High conflict divorce is bad, but not nearly as bad as...
I guess putting your kids in the middle and them suffering through.
The biggest misunderstanding about divorce attorneys is...
that we don't care about our clients. I mean, I certainly do, maybe too much.
When I had my divorce attorney, my misunderstanding was that she would listen to all of my vitriol about my ex, and that's part of her job, is to be the attorney therapist. I think that's a misunderstanding.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so much I can do. I'm not a therapist, but I could certainly listen, and I could certainly guide you as to, what a court can and cannot do with regard to certain very high conflict issues.
We're coming to the conclusion of this time together, and there are just two more things I want to do with you. First is, Samantha, do you have a resource that you want to share, whether it's a book, an article, or even a perspective that you believe most divorcing parents in high conflict situations may not even know about?
My perspective is you're not alone. There's a team of people who can help you through this process, not just one book or one article, but there's a lot of experts out there. There are financial experts. We use therapists, emotional support experts. There's so many people that we can incorporate into the process, that we do incorporate into the process. And our clients are not alone. We'll work with this team of great people to get anyone through the process.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, this is the signature activity for this podcast, and it's called Passing On One Word Emotion Challenge. So the my previous guest, left you a one-word emotion challenge. I'm going to play the short clip of her giving you the challenge, and then I'm going to ask you to respond to it. Then we're going to flip the script, and you're going to choose a one-word emotion. You're going to put that in a challenge statement for my future guests. Okay, so we're going to keep passing it on. All right, are you ready to watch the clip?
Sure.
Okay.
So often clients are quite anxious throughout the divorce process. What can you do as a practitioner to help clients who are anxious deal with their anxiety throughout this process?
Samantha, that came from Meredith Brennan of Momjian Anderer Law Firm. She challenged you. What do you say?
I would guide my clients, I think, going back to something we spoke about earlier, is to keep the big picture in mind. Take a step back. Less minutia, more big picture.
I love that, especially if kids. That's the big picture right there. All right, now, are you ready to pass on your one-word emotion challenge to the future guests? Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up on the screen the same mood meter that Meredith had. So on the left-hand side, the red is high energy, low pleasantness emotions. On the right, in the yellow, are high energy, high pleasantness emotions. In the blue is low energy, low pleasantness emotions. And in the green is low energy, high pleasantness emotions. You can choose from any color, and in that color, any emotion that you want to frame as a challenge for my next guest, my future guest.
I would go with the yellow and optimistic.
Ooh, nice. Frame the challenge as in, how can you help your client feel that one word emotion during their divorce process? All right, take it over.
How can you help your client feel optimistic and also be heard, during the process?
And why did you choose the word optimistic, the emotion optimistic?
Well, I always like to say there's no winners. There's no winners in divorce. Everybody loses in one way or another. Everybody loses. But I think people want to be heard. And I think it's important to stay optimistic and understand what the outcomes could likely be. And then prepare yourself for may or may not happen, but keep with optimism in mind.
Yeah, that's an optimism is a high frequency, delicious emotion that we all want to hold on to. So Samantha, thank you so much for doing the important work that you do and for the clarity that you brought to our listeners today. You've reminded us that even in high conflict situations, emotions can be managed, children can be protected, and clients can move toward a healthier future. And to the listeners, remember, what you feel before, during, and after divorce matters for you, for your children, and for the future you're building. Until next time, take care of your emotions because they are worthy, and so are you. And thank you, Samantha. I appreciate you being here with me today.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.